Hi, Jen.
Hi, Zanna.
Hi, everybody. We're the Cup and Saucy Book Club.
What did I assign you to read this month, Zanna?
You gave me My Story of Us, Grayson, written and performed by friend of the show, Chris Brinkley.
And what did you think?
You know, I really liked it. It was short. It was very short.
Yeah,
It was about 2 hours.
Yeah, it's about 2 hours.
Just a smidge over 2 hours. It was like an amuse-bouche of a story. And it was it was just a very lovely little love story. Let me sort of tell you how it's set up. So it's set up as like journal entries or love letters to the female who is basically you. You know, it's basically it's kind of a connect. It's like a partly first person narrative, partly second person narrative, where there's much of all of the story is told from the perspective of the male main character, who is Grayson. And it starts off with a little bit of angst, a little bit of panic. He's got panic attacks. Grayson has panic attacks, and this woman who is presumed to be the reader is there and not judging him and not creating a bad situation for him and making him feel comfortable instead of increasingly panicked. What I liked about it a lot is that it didn't actually have, I kept waiting for it. It didn't have like the third act breakup thing. It just was a very simple, straightforward. And I know we've talked about men writing romance in the past and how that can be good and bad. In this case, it was sort of, it struck me as being like, this is how men emote. They emote in 2 hours instead of 10.
I like that.
So it's like, there's no questioning whether or not she loves him back.
Yeah.
You know, which is what you get a lot in the female perspective.
What does he really
stories
think?
is like,
what is he?
What is he really thinking?
You know, what does he mean when he says this, that, or the other thing?
Right. Yeah. And in this, it's just the man is like, I mean what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that I love you. I mean that you complete me. I mean that, and there's just no question that that's what he means. And there's no question that he believes that she loves him too. And that's sort of refreshing because, you know, it absolutely does not have that communication trope, you know, that miscommunication trope piece of it. It's just these two people met and they connected and they made each other feel safe. And at least I assume so. I mean, so through the murder colored glasses aspect, it was like, does she feel safe though? What is she?
I wondered how you were going to take this with the, you know, it's like.
So, I mean, I believe it. I believe that she would feel safe, but you know, I'm just like, and the way it's written, it is written so it could be any woman, and it could be, you know, and by its nature, it can't go into her doubts and her fears, and so it didn't bother me. I mean, it was never something that ever kind of struck me as, is he being a stalker? Is he being you know, inappropriate? It was just sort of like he's just a guy who's communicating pretty well about how he feels about somebody and not making her guess and not, you know, maybe she called him a little more often than he called her. Maybe that's something that could give her some angst and anxiety. But
because it's left to the assumption that it's however the reader is taking this in, that is either a, you know, giving off stalker vibe or it's something that the reader desires from a potential partner. So
sure,
it could be seen as both.
You know, and whereas I am very inclined to read the stalker vibe in in books. I didn't get that. I didn't really get
no.
that. I mean, it would be sort of fun from my perspective to write the other side of it as if it were a stalker thing. But
so the reader's response.
right, but it would be challenging. It would be challenging to actually turn him into a stalker and not just sort of a guy who wears his heart on his sleeve. And
okay, I have to pause on that one because we both know that Chris Brinkley, listens to our podcast, and
right.
So you know that there is going to be some sort of challenge issued. Potentially.
It's possible.
It's
potentially,
possible.
yeah. So I guess that's what it's one of the greater forms of compliment when you get fan fiction written about your fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it would be a challenge. It would be a challenge to turn this guy into not a nice guy. I mean, he is a really decent human being,
it's far too genuine.
It is. Yeah.
I mean, yes, he only shows his emotions for 2.5 hours rather than 10, but all of the feelings are genuine. You don't get any.
Oh, they are, and in fact, I would argue that they would be more genuine than sometimes what you get out of a 10-hour book. And it didn't feel onerous at all. It felt very. It was just a lovely little story, and it was a little bit of a pick me up, honestly.
Yeah,
and
because we've been doing some heavy.
Yeah, and actually, I listened to it on a day that was kind of a difficult day for me emotionally, and it was sort of a bright spot in that emotionally difficult day. So it was something that it may not be for everyone. It may not be the kind of thing that everybody would be into, but I would encourage people to give it a try because it is so genuine, and his voice is so warm and lovely, and it does feel just kind of like a non-creepy hug.
Yeah.
So
and I do have to now. I want to remind anyone who's watching that this is actually a series of stories, and there's Chris is intended for there to be
third.
6. Yeah, this is the third.
This is the third
in what is intended to be a 6-story series, and
right.
So Grayson in this is one of a group of guys who meets together once a year, and they know each other for a long time, and then they just get together, have a retreat of sorts where they give up all of the responsibilities, and they just let them be their 12-year-old selves.
They're kids again.
Yeah, they're kids
they get
again.
to be kids again.
And so no responsibilities beyond what are we eating tonight, and that's about it. And so there is a lot that happens at their last meeting that is sort of the launching point for this entire series. And because of certain things that happen in the first 2 books is the reason why I didn't give them to Zanna to read. But the My Story of Us Grayson starts at the wedding of one of the previous two characters.
Yeah, I guess the first book.
Yes,
My Story of Us.
Yeah,
Zach.
and the second book, which is Thomas, I believe, is actually starts. It's with an established marriage, and it actually starts at the 3rd act breakup. So it comes at that point. And when you were talking too about what's the emotional journey of saying your feelings and just saying what you mean, and not wondering too much about what the other person is feeling. In Thomas, that's a little different though. because
Okay.
he has to ask himself not only, okay, the book starts out with basically the wife telling him, I don't think we should be married anymore.
Oh,
And
okay.
and then he's got to go on a work trip, and while he's on this work trip, he's exploring, why did she say that? What did I, what
Mm-hmm.
happened? Where did the breakdown happen? What did I
Right.
do? What can I do differently? And so that
It's very
gets,
self-reflective.
yeah,
Reflective.
it's very much a self-reflective kind of thing. Um
Mm-hmm.
and then so it's a little bit of a deeper dive in still the same amount of time though. So
Right.
but it's so yeah, this was the one that so far, because I have only read the 3 books that have been available,
Mm-hmm.
but there are more coming. And so of the 3 though, this one was the best one to give to Zanna.
Mm-hmm.
So and so what do you give your what's your cup level and spicy level for, or saucy level for this book?
Cup level. I think I'm gonna go with 4.5. I thought it was really strong. There are some things that maybe could have been explored a little bit deeper if a little bit more time
Yeah.
was spent on it. I I liked a whole lot of it, but a lot of it was it's my murder colored glasses things of why are things suddenly going so well. It's like, okay, it's not just a happy ending, it's a happy, and
Yeah.
it's like everything is coming up roses kind of, which I loved, but I I don't trust.
Which
But yeah, but
this is
I'll go with 4.5.
and the saucy level?
It wasn't particularly saucy.
No.
Now there was a little bit of intimacy that was sort of closed door.
Yeah.
It was like it was it was more romantic than saucy.
Yes.
There was definitely romance, and there was definitely a sense of that there was there was a physical love component, but it was not out in the open.
Yeah, and and it would be a really extremely difficult thing to pull off if you are meaning the romantic partner in the story to be the reader,
Right.
to do,
Right.
the
Yeah,
intimate
that
details
mhm.
in any detail.
Right. Right. And even, so even the descriptions of what he finds so beautiful about her could be applied to
Yeah.
any body.
Yeah.
And that's, what I actually really did like that. It's like, he could be talking about somebody who's older or younger or skinny or not, and somebody who's, it doesn't matter what their skin looks like. It doesn't matter, any of that doesn't matter. It's that he sees this person as being so beautiful,
Yeah.
and that I think really works, but only works because they don't go into great because he doesn't go into great physical detail.
Yeah,
Um,
and a lot is conveyed in.
right.
I especially appreciated the word choices. Like,
Yeah.
he would talk about, I touch your face, but he doesn't say anything descriptive about the
Right.
face. But
Right.
you
Right.
can still put yourself in the
Right.
moment, of
Exactly.
of him touching the face, and
Hmm.
that face can look like any face, so
Right. So
and
saucy level, I would, because there is some romance, but it's not like open door romance. About a one,
yeah, yeah,
one saucer.
this is not at all spicy or saucy in any real way,
This is
but
not mommy corn.
no,
Right.
it is not. And it was something of, when we talked to Chris Brinkley, it was he just he said that it was, an experiment to do it this way, and it was a
Yeah.
challenge. And I think the challenge paid off.
I do too. I think
Um,
he did a really good job with it. I was impressed with how he pulled it off, and I understand. Of course, we understood the challenges when we talked to him about it, and but I think he did a really good job.
yeah, and I'm looking forward
pulled
to
it off
reading
well.
the other or
Yeah,
listening to the other
I'll
three.
probably go back and read Zach and
Yeah,
Thomas, because they are it. I wasn't really sure, but given how Grayson was, I'm like, yeah, I'll
yeah,
give it a
yeah.
try. So
So I mean, there will be. I will just say that the reason, like again, the reason that I chose
no, yeah,
Grayson,
you told me about what
yeah,
my triggers might be with those.
yeah,
Yeah.
and so but it's definitely something that I think is worth your time to
Mhm.
listen to the other two stories and to hear the progression of it all. Um,
Mhm.
and but it also did it take away from your enjoyment of Grayson that you hadn't heard the other two
Not at
stories?
all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Yeah. So it's not like
No,
it's a
not at all.
cliffhanger or anything.
I mean, it was no, it was, I mean, I kind of gathered from the context that there were other stories
Yeah.
that were surrounding it, but it didn't feel like I was missing out on anything by not knowing those other stories. I felt like it was definitely a standalone. It didn't need the other pieces
Yeah.
to depend on it, and it was not just the love story between Grayson and you, the woman.
Yeah.
It was also kind of a brotherly love story, and it was a
Yeah.
uncle and niece love story, and and it was like a family love story, as
Yeah.
well as the romantic love, and I thought it was really well handled.
Yeah, and I think he packed a lot in that
He did.
short little nugget.
He
I
did.
mean, this was and
Well done, Chris.
yeah, well done, Chris. Bravo. And we're looking forward to the other three. So
Yeah.
and so for next month's selection, because we will be going into October and spooky season
Mhm.
and my favorite time
Mhm.
of year. So there was a lot of before there were audiobooks, there were radio dramas, and it was how it was how the radio plays would happen,
Yeah.
and it was before television. So
And that's let me go back to my story of Us Grayson too.
Yeah.
The audiobook had sort of a one-man radio play kind of vibe
Yeah.
to it. There were sound effects with it. And sometimes that bothers me, but it didn't bother me with this. So,
yeah, I mean they were used. I think that they were used effectively. It wasn't
yeah,
like over
and
the
not
top.
not overly used. I don't
Yeah.
think they were overly used, but they were definitely employed that sort of radio play.
Yeah, which was another reason that I enjoyed it, because I enjoyed listening to old radio dramas, and would
Yeah, during one of my many concussions when I was a kid, I was not allowed to read with my eyes. I wasn't allowed to watch anything, so my dad checked out a whole bunch of radio plays,
oh wow.
like The Shadow and then just a number of different radio plays that I listened to in a dark room because
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed to look at anything.
And there's actually well, I know of at least one podcast, and there's probably more, where all they do is replay these old radio dramas.
Okay.
Because I know for a time that I did this whole sort of binge listen to the Dragnet series with
Okay,
with
yeah.
Jack Webb, which is, for anybody who's not familiar, was first a radio series, then a TV show, and it was all taken from
And then a terrible, terrible movie.
and a terrible movie. And that
In
was
the
not
80s,
worthy.
which was
That was
not
not
ju-
worthy of Dragnet.
Was not Jack Webb.
It was not Jack Webb, but this is, think of it as Law and Order before Law and Order, because it was taken from actual case files from
just
the
facts.
Just the facts, and taken from actual case files from LAPD. So that's what they used for their stories, and so but similar to that is there was one from the 30s that that was a particular favorite of my late stepfather's. And so he would tell me about it, but I have yet to be able to actually find any existing episodes of it. And it was called The Hermit's Cave. And so for your choices for this month, it will be based on the opening of The Hermit's Cave. And this voice would come on and say, ghost stories, weird stories, and murders too. The hermit knows them all. Turn out your lights, turn them out, and listen while the hermit tells you. And then it would proceed to whatever story.
Okay.
So your choices this month are a ghost story, a weird story, or a murder too.
I gotta go with murder.
Of course. Very on brand for you, Zanna.
Very on brand for me. Yeah.
Well, so your selection then for next month, for the month of October, is Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver.
Okay, good.
And this is narrated by a great friend of the show, Samantha Brentmore and Eric Nolan. And so enjoy this one. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Excellent.
And we'll see, as
I've already spent my Audible credit on it. I was just waiting until you assigned it to me to read it.
Yes,
so.
we were gonna do this book eventually, but Halloween's a good time. The spooky season's a good time, and so just like with Butcher and Blackbird, where you looked at cookies and cream ice cream differently. We're going to find out what Zanna thinks of crafting after listening to Leather and Lark.
I have a massive craft.
Yes, I know.
room.
And this will...
Okay.
This might even give you some new ideas.
Oh, fun. I've been looking for a new craft.
So join us next month for Leather and Lark by Bryn Weaver, narrated by Samantha Brentmore and Eric Nolan. And the episode will be available on YouTube and TikTok on Wednesday, October 16th. And thank you so much for joining us for the Cup and Saucy Book Club.
And join us on Monday for our chat with another great guest on the Cup and Saucy Book Club podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us at Cup and Saucy Books on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Bye.